Intervention measure.
The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman, in going through this legislation here, we've got to the point where there's a clear philosophical difference between the national government and what would be a Labor government. And it comes to a head when we're talking about incentives. And at the top of the scale, the national government's always believed if you're earning $1 million, then you're incentivised to behave better by offering a bonus of $500,000. That's only fair, they say. But if you're a worker, then you're incentivised by, well, you won't lose your job, or you won't be injured, and be satisfied with your incentive. And that's effectively what we're doing here, because I'm going through this, and it says the corporation may develop and establish workplace incentive programs that I guess will ultimately mean a possible reduction in the levies for employers and self-employed persons for the work account. So I asked, where's the incentive for the earners account? Because if we're to have work, health and safety across the board, if we're to change the culture, and if we're to incentivise every New Zealander, regardless of where they work or participate in the economy, then everyone should be incentivised in the same way. So when the Minister, as in 174C, approves a certain workplace incentive program, does the Minister consider the fairness of the incentives and where they will fall? Because what's in it for the worker and the earner's account to behave better by way of a fiscal initiative, when we've got here clear provisions and quite detailed incentives here and specifications around what can happen for the employers and self-employed persons. Mr Chairman, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have incentives. And I'm not denying the reality that fiscal incentives, a lower cost, for example, indeed drive better behaviour. That's the economic theory anyway. Always the economic theory run by this Tory government is that offer money and things will be better, take money away and things will be worse. But the poor worker, their incentive is, well, if you don't work harder, we'll take all your money away. Mr Chairman, it's really important if we're passing this legislation, as I've said in almost every speech, that every New Zealander, regardless of their place in the system, whether they be a PCBU or a BOSS, or whether they be a worker, that's someone who works for the PCBU or the BOSS, they both need the same incentives if we're to change the culture. So where's the incentive for the earners account? Where's the incentive for the workers so that they get more money if there's a better safety regime in their business or in their industry? Nowhere. Oh, well, the Minister, I know, call on the Minister to offer that because the specifications are not there. Can I say it's a reasonable explanation to say, well, the worker will be safe, they won't be killed. Isn't that incentive enough? Well, I tend to try and take a fairer, more equitable, more egalitarian approach to it and say that I'd like to have both the PCBU and the BOSS and the worker incentivised by the same methods so that when the Minister approves the incentive programs, the benefits accrue to everyone in that business or that sector or that industry. So where are they? And so I guess if we go back to another point here in 174B, I leave the question with the Minister. Process to develop workplace incentive programs. And there's a number of specifications here. The extent to which the programs like deleting or reduction on the incident severity and impact workplace, very sensible. The extent to which the program may affect work account levies, that's the fiscal incentive. and then the expected administration costs of the program, fair enough. Here's the other one. It's 174B, Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Damien
Thank
O'Connor.
you. 174B, A4. The impact of the program on the administration of the accident compensation as a whole and on claims management processes. Now, the question I have here is about ACC, and I know that the most recent statements by the government have been that they will not sell or dismantle ACC. But I don't trust them. And I think they've sold anything they can get their hands on, or even the things they can't. And so my question long term is that what could be the possible implications of this if the government were to sell ACC? Because when you go down to 174C, Mr. Chair, and please let me explain,
Not debating
Mr. Chairman,
asset sales or potential.
because the Minister's approval of certain workplace incentive programs depends upon a number of things. Quote, the Minister may consider any relevant factors including the public interest. I think we understand what that is, a safer New Zealand. B, this is 174C2B, how the proposed workplace incentive programs align with the government's broader objectives. Well, I don't agree with the government's broader objectives. I don't know what you think, Mr. Chairman. You're probably not allowed
Don't bring
to
me
think
into
too
it.
much in those lines, but I think
I don't get to give a
side,
speech.
people on this side of the House, and I'm keeping very strictly to this,
Be bloody good if
don't agree with the government's broader objectives. So when the Minister has to consider that, when he or she approves an incentive program, I can't trust that it's been done for the right reasons. Can I go on to 174C2C that says the impact of the proposed workplace incentive program, this is one of the factors that the Minister must consider, the impact of the proposed workplace incentive program on levy payers generally and on particular groups of levy payers, which brings me right back around to the argument about the workers and the employers, Mr. Speaker. So if you were, as I would say to you, have more consideration for the employer than the employee, and I know this government's been very quick to beat up on the unions as though they're running a campaign against the government. Well, they're not. They're just simply running a campaign to defend the rights of their workers. The fact that the government's at war with the unions is beside the point, Mr. Speaker. They're just trying to defend the rights of workers and indeed, in this case, their safety. So when the Minister considers relevant factors, or he or she were to consider the rights of the employers over the employees, then I don't think that's right. I don't think we've got the balance right, Mr. Speaker. So if we come back to the points I'm raising here, a couple of questions for the Minister. Can the Minister give an absolute assurance that the incentive programs will deliver benefits to all in the same fiscal way, that's to the employer and the employee, to the PCBU, the BOSS, and to the worker? And then in considering the programs, will the Minister give us an assurance that the programs will deliver equal benefits to both the PCBUs and to the employees? Well, the Minister may laugh, but I have to say that I've been in this House long enough to dig a little deeper, and to actually understand what national governments do. And if you'd like me to read out some of the quotations from the 1992 passage, I wasn't here quite in 1992, but the point is that we have an obligation to look ahead, to take a longer term projection of what every word in this legislation might mean for people. Because the cold hard reality is that we have got health and safety wrong. We kill too many people in this country. We injure too many. And while the government committed post-Pike River to improvements, we say they have been watered down. And this provision here talks of the incentives driven by fiscal incentives with the employers, which is, we know that this is what it's aimed for, but actually the underlying objective of the legislation should be effective, not balanced, effective health and safety programs. So that's all I ask of the Minister, and I'm sure that he'll be happy to get up and take a call and answer those things and try and give us a reassurance that the benefits to the PCBU and the benefits to the worker will be the same.